Hey everyone, it's Eric with firearmtutorials.com, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about swaging. I had a question a couple months back about, depending on what kind of method of swaging you're using, how can you tell if you're swaging enough or if you're swaging too much, and is it possible to do either one of those? So you can do both. You can run it through a swager and actually not swage it enough. You can also swage or usually ream out the primer pocket too much, and when you do that, the primer pocket will just be a little too large and it won't be tight enough to actually hold a primer in securely. So I picked out several cases here that I'm going to show you guys. What I have here is called a swage gauge. It's from ballistictools.com, and it's got two sides to it. You see the first side here has a kind of an hourglass shape here, and what that gives you is and the ability to measure if your primer pocket is too large. And then on the other side, this will show you if your primer pocket is large enough. So if you put it through a swager, or you don't swage it enough or swage it deep enough, then this won't fit all the way in or fit in at all. Of course, the other side, if you've done it too much and this side actually does go in, then you know that you've gone too far and you probably shouldn't use that case. So let's take a look at some of these. And so let's see if I can figure out which one's which. Okay, so you see here that there's still a slight little ring around the primer pocket here. And if I try and use the correct side of the swage gauge here, which would show me, you know, if it's not swaged enough, you see if I try to insert it here, it doesn't go. No matter which way I try and angle it or how hard I try and push it, it's just not going to go in there. Obviously, if that won't work, then the no-go side, which indicates that it's too large, isn't going to work either. So let me grab one that's been swaged. So here's a Lake City case that's been swaged, and you see when we put the gauge in here, it goes in just fine. If I try and run the other side, it doesn't go in. So I know that one's good. As far as swaging too much, it's usually pretty hard to do. I'll give you a look at this case. Now, this was one that I picked up that was already reloaded before by somebody else, but you see this mark here is indication that it has been reamed out using some kind of rotary tool, a Dremel or a drill or something like that, and it's left this mark here. Now this one, not only was it messed up a little bit on the side here, but it actually wasn't properly swaged either because the swage gauge won't go in there. I picked this one out specifically because I thought that it was going to be over-swaged, but I was a little surprised here. Now, here's an example of one that was not only swaged enough, but swaged too much. So this was the only one where the no-go side of the gauge actually fit in there, so I was a little surprised by that. This one I'm going to go ahead and throw away, because what happens in the case of using a case like that is if the primer pocket is too large, what can happen is once the cartridge is fired, the primer can actually blow out the rear of the case, and what could happen here is once the shell's ejected, the primer stays inside the breech. The gas coming from your gas tube can blow the primer back into the bolt carrier here, and then once you get this bolt carrier clogged here, like if a primer gets stuck in here, there's really only one way to get it out, which is to take the bolt carrier apart and bang it out through there, and then you have to worry about restaking it. And so basically, rather than use, you know, one or two cases or however many you have that may fail the swage gauge test like that, it's easier just to throw them away and, you know, not take the chance of complicating your rifle setup. So That's kind of it for the swage gauge. This tool is not very expensive. I think it was like $6 or $7. Well worth it, because as you're going along with these, like somebody had mentioned, you know, I'm swaging like on a super swage, or, you know, some other method of swaging where you're usually doing it while you're not in the whole process of reloading. So there's not really an easy way to check unless you have, say, a hand press or a single stage press where you can go ahead and just check them as you go along here and there. So the swage gauge, like I said, I'll have a whole bucket of them. Like I did here, I did these, and kind of every, you know, 10 or so, I just kind of pick them out and use the swage gauge just to make sure that everything was going good. And that's pretty much it, guys. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for watching.